The battle of the Major League Soccer undefeateds went down in front of 60,000 fans in Cleveland. The women's national team lost a superstar indefinitely, and Riqui Puig defends his coach out in LA. That and more on Monday's Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. This is Morning Kickaround, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's most favoritist country, coming to you live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. Thank you for joining us here on Monday morning. Back with us in the seat to my side. How you doing, Mr. Davis?
Good to be back. Thank you to Brooks Lambier for sitting in with you on Friday, Robert. I got a chance to watch that back a little bit, listen to you guys talk American soccer, and I enjoyed it. So we very much thank Brooks for stepping in and filling my shoes when I was out driving my 16-year-old to a college visit. Maybe I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll have to dig into that. I'm kind of curious how that goes, a little kind of a snapshot into like 6-7 years into my future. But Friday's show, if you didn't go and see it, we had a great in-depth conversation about what the future of college soccer might be. Jason, you had a great conversation with Cesar Hernandez about promotion and relegation in Mexico and the very kind of ambiguous state that it's in right now. So go check that out. Morning Kickaround on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed to Morning Kickaround's YouTube channel, do it now. We're well beyond 2,000 subscribers, going to 2,500. Be the next to do it. And then have your friend and family be the next after you. The more subscribers, the better the show gets.
Yes, I would like a little bit of housekeeping ahead of us getting into the content today. First of all, shout out to our first 5 members on the YouTube channel. Luke, Angus, Mike Thomas, the DK in Philadelphia, Nate Osika. Thank you very much for being members of the channel. And if you want to join up, get access to the Discord for MK Ultras. We've got other perks coming down the line. That is a great way to support the show. I know Rob's going to tell you other ways that you can support the show. I also promised that when we got to 2,000 subscribers, and we are zooming past 2,000 subscribers, I would find a way to give away some American soccer paraphernalia, memorabilia, tchotchkes, whatever you want to call them, the collected things of my studio here. And you get such a limited shot, Rob. Actually, can I do something for a second, Rob? Can I take you off the screen for just a second? This is completely unplanned. Yeah, I'm taking you off the screen. I'm going to give everybody a look at what a little bit more of what I've got going on here. All right. So no Rob. Actually, I think we can here. If I do it this way, then we can still see you and they get the wide shot. So we should have done this in the first place. I didn't mean to eliminate you from the show. This is again, even this is such a small sample of what I've got going on in this space with flags and scarves and various things sent out by various teams over the years. So if you want something from here, and there may be a couple things I want to hold on to, but if you want something from here, be a subscriber. We're going to enter some people. We got to figure out the mechanism here, Rob. Maybe it's a hashtag. Maybe people need to share somewhere else. Maybe they need to give us a review or something, so that we can enter people into a drawing and they can get some American soccer swag or whatever, something that is collected in this room. That's what I wanted to say before we dive in today.
I think there's a Spinorama sort of randomizer selection. So I think if you get the pool of the member names in there, and while it's early, your chances go up. We press the spinner, and whoever lands on it gets the item, right?
Yeah, we can start to do that. I mean, I have enough things that we could probably do this every week. I mean, I don't know if I want to be going to the post office and boxing things up every week, but sure, why not? Let's do this. And I'm sure my wife will appreciate that I've started to draw down the pile of American soccer nonsense.
American soccer nonsense. That's our thing here on Morning Kickaround. Indeed. If you want to follow along on social media at @MKickaround across X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, you can write us a note on email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And if for whatever reason you want to support us, but not via the YouTube, coffee.com/morningkickaround. Thank you to all the members over there. on coffee. You can do a one-time donation as little as $5, and
can I
as
say
much as
something
you
about
want,
the
a reoccurring? Sure.
pronunciation of that? So you went from Ko-Fi, and like, no, it's not Ko-Fi, it's coffee, and then you went to coffee, which doesn't look right. I saw somebody call it Kofi, which which is like a third one. So now,
Well, as long as we bring it up onto the screen and people can see it, hopefully that's fine.
right. That's right. But there is a podcast. So it's ko-fi.com. Look for Morning Kick Around.
Notice that the coffee link is in the link tree on all of our things. So hopefully, if you can't pronounce it or spell it, click the link over there. And then, you already said that we have a podcast. So on your favorite podcast platform, look for Morning Kick Around over there. I think that's the admin stuff taken care of for now. Subscribe to all the things, follow all the things, donate as much as you want. But right now, we're going to move along. Let's get into the meat of it. Mondays, long balls here on Morning Kick Around. Long balls here on Morning Kick Around, Monday morning, April 21st. I'm Robert. He's Jason, leading us off. Major League Soccer's two remaining undefeated teams clashed on Saturday. Columbus welcomed Inter Miami in Cleveland. A big crowd was on display for a very high-level Major League Soccer game. Tough loss for Crew overall. Ended up 1-0 for the visiting Miami side. Were you able to check in on this at all? It was very entertaining. I'll get to how my general sentiment of it, but I want to let you have a fill in first, because I was on scene, but I was curious what you thought of it from afar.
Well, we're gonna unpack the event that was this game in Cleveland with Rob, who is our on the scene reporter, a little bit later in the show. So that's coming up. American soccer is weird. We'll get to that. First Energy Stadium, the site of this massive clash between two unbeatens in Major League Soccer. And you look at the numbers. I mean, you don't have to have watched the game. You don't have to have seen the highlights to understand. If you look at the numbers that Columbus, I almost say Cleveland. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry.
It's a tough
The
one.
Columbus Crew should really feel like they let themselves down. Should really feel like they should have had this one. 2.94 expected goals for Columbus, less than 1.86 for Inter Miami. Columbus had more of the ball. I don't think it's a surprise. And obviously, the possession only matters in that you do something with it. So it's not really it doesn't say that necessarily Columbus was much better because they had 58% of the ball while Miami had 42. Although, again, because they're Columbus, they're known for using the ball and using it effectively. 8 big chances created by Wilfred Nancy's team. 8. And they couldn't find the net. I mean, they had some beautiful moves. I'm not a big fan of Ustari. I don't know why he should be starting for Inter Miami. I do think he is often a liability, but he might be the man of the match in this game, because if not for him, Columbus scores 3, right? That Arfston chance in particular was so well worked for Columbus, and to have it go, and it was a great goal from Miami too, right? Benjamin Kravatsky doesn't score very often, but if you're going to score, do it that way in front of 60,000.
Yeah, this one is tough for Columbus Crew fans because they played well enough to win this game. I mean, the first half was somewhat even. There was openings, but not a lot of huge chances. The emotion in the building was wild every time that Messi was on the ball. I got to say, check it off the bucket list. Saw Messi and Suarez in the flesh, and the buzz and the feeling change whenever he was on the ball in the attacking third was definitely distinct and palpable. But the Crew did enough to shut Messi down in this. There was always 2 or 3 players in there to block the shot, and he's good enough, obviously, to get some shots off. Didn't get any on goal, but it was wild that it was a hustle play from the fullback. Well, you said his name, Marcelo Weingart. He out hustled. There was one time Crew got out hustled on a long ball coming back. He gets there, puts the cross in, and one of the only times that one of the center backs gets beaten to the ball in front of the box, and they score the goal. A pretty even first half, ends 1-0 at the half with the visitors ahead. The second half, though, Columbus.
Columbus.
It was just about all Columbus. And Columbus is so good on the ball, and the way they rotate is so sharp and so fun to watch. And they unlocked Miami time after time. You could see them having to think and really, hit their peak on the day to unlock them. And they did it about half a dozen times, and they just couldn't get the final touch. And there was, in the second half, as that game went on, they kept on getting one more chance and one more chance. And there was a lot of hair pulling in that non-Deca section.
Yeah, imagine. The Daniel Gazdag had a couple of opportunities, obviously didn't convert them, including one very early that might have set
Crew fans, you're being too harsh on the old Gazdag. I got to say, he missed some chances, but it's a little early to jump on him like they did.
I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to start scoring goals for them. I think he looks the part in terms of fitting into this team. Obviously, Jason Russell Rowe had a chance, at least one very good one. We've talked about Arston and the chance that he had.
Diego Rossi had an amazing one too.
Yeah, they all had chances. Everybody had chances, weren't able to put them on the net. I will say that watching this game on television, since you were in the building, you didn't get the benefit of listening to Jake Zivin and Taylor Twellman call this game. But one thing that Wilfred Nancy has done, if he's done nothing else in MLS, and he's done some obviously very good things and achieved some things and is recognized as a very good coach, he has created a world in which people like Taylor Twellman are going to say interpret the space about 50 times during a game when they watch the Crew play.
Is that a fancy way of saying rotate?
It was a fancy way. Yeah, it was a fancy way of saying that players run to where there's space. That's what he was saying. Oh, look, Max Arfston is interpreting the space. No, he's just running to where it naturally makes sense within the system. And look, again, this is Wilfred Nancy has done this. He's created this scenario in which Columbus Crew players feel that they have this responsibility, they have this freedom, they can do these things, they can move, they can rotate, they can, interchange in ways that effectively put players in on goal and create chances. But I think that phrase in particular, like I want t-shirts that say interpret the space is what I'm saying.
It was really impressive to watch, and this is I think my third or fourth time watching in person Wilfred Nancy's Columbus Crew, and they. From up high, I was up high on the end, and so seeing them interpret the space is very impressive. Like one person goes, one person already comes. Like it's an ever-changing blob, if you will. Like whenever someone moves here, another person fills in, and it's constant. And then there'll be an attacker making the tackle in the back, and then there'll be someone that is a defender will be up on the wing at one point. It is constantly morphing and rotating. It's very impressive to see in person.
Let's flip it over briefly before we move on to other topics. Let's talk about Inter Miami. Graham has this question: is Mascherano a net positive or a net nothing on how they're playing? Now they won this game, right? They maybe were outplayed on the day, but they won this game. Ustari was important, but you count on your goalkeeper to make important saves. They are undefeated in Major League Soccer. They are the last undefeated team in Major League Soccer because of this victory. They were a Supporter Shield champion last year who bowed out in the first round of the playoffs. I don't know that we have enough of a book on Mascherano to know the answer to that question.
TBD.
But I would say it's a zero situation. He's not added a lot because they were good last year in the regular season, right? And he still has Messi, and he still has Suarez, and he still has all these players. But it's definitely not a negative yet, right? It's not a negative yet.
No, not yet. And I think that decision of good or not will come down to end of season playoff time. It's going to come down to his player selection, his substitutions, and how he does in those crunch time moments in months from now. Unless there's some sort of flame out and burnout, it's going to come down to those important postseason games. And before we move on from this game, I got to say, what a pleasure it is to watch Darlington Nagbe play this game. Seeing him just with the subtle drops of the shoulders and he interprets space like no other, I'll tell you that. And he shook with simple just drops of the shoulders and turns and first touches. He shook Luis Suarez, tried to snag the ball from him so many times, and just with a little touch or a turn, just getting away from him. Every team should want the security blanket. That is, Darlington Nagbe. His first touch is like hitting a soft pillow. It's amazing.
I would say Darlington Nagbe, when he is done, will go down as one of the most underrated players that American soccer has ever produced. I don't mean just MLS. I mean, period. Now, again, some of that's based on the fact that he decided he didn't want to be a U.S. men's national team player anymore. That was not something he was willing to do because of the sacrifice it would mean for his family. He's obviously a particular kind of guy, But in terms of the job he does and has done for what, 3 teams in Major League Soccer, 3 good teams. He's been a major part of success and championships in every stop he's had. There's a reason for that. Darlington Nagbe is incredible.
Yeah, we'll come back later in the show and talk about the event that it was to see Cleveland host Columbus and Miami. We'll come to that later show. But moving on to long ball number 2 here for Monday morning. We got news that Steve Cherundolo will be leaving Los Angeles Football Club. And then he had a bit of an adventurous weekend taking on Portland, LAFC 3, Portland 3, ending in kind of VAR chiming in and awarding a penalty late. There's more to the story, though.
Let's address the Cherundolo announcement from Friday first. So Steve Cherundolo is going to leave LAFC at the end of the season. This, if you kind of know who Steve is, and you kind of know, I don't mean personally, but just like his background, his history, where he comes from, where he went and spent 25 years or whatever it was, this is not like, mind-blowingly surprising. This is not, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. If you kind of think it through, you go, oh, okay, I kind of understand, because Steve Cherundolo came to Major League Soccer to get his coaching career off the ground after having been an assistant in Germany. But I think everyone knew when he arrived first at Las Vegas and then took the LAFC job when Bob Bradley left, that he was going back to Germany, and probably sooner rather than later. Now, there was some talk about Dolo being a candidate for the U.S. men's national team job post Greg Berhalter. That obviously didn't happen. And once that didn't happen, the clock was ticking. And maybe Cherundolo didn't want that job. Maybe he didn't think he was ready for that job, which I think is a fair thing. But once that didn't happen, it was always, when will he go back to Germany? Now, what I'm curious about is the timing. You're doing this 3rd week of April, right? We've got a long way to go before the MLS season is over. Right? And LAFC is expected to be in the playoffs and fighting for a championship all the way down to the end, which could take their season into December. So is Steve Cherundolo making this announcement? Is the team making this announcement now for any other reason than they just don't want their fans to not know? What is the motive here? Because he could play out the season and then say, that's it for me, I'm off. And in the background, the club could be executing a search for his replacement. Now, maybe it would leak out or something. Maybe they wanted to control a narrative. And maybe there was a story about to drop, Rob, that was going to blow up their spot on this. But I kind of have the sense that if we're talking about this in April, it might mean that Steve Cherundolo doesn't make the full season, that something comes up in the summer, and he decides he's going back to Germany ahead of a new season in that country.
Yeah, as you're talking it out, that kind of makes the most sense out of all of it, is that they're kind of getting out ahead of something, especially in the summer, because obviously if he was to be planning and telegraphing a move to Germany, that move you'd think would be in the off season during the summer. So you'd think that'd be the motivation. That's the most sense making thought thread on here. But I was going to say, that'd be weird to put in your notice 9 months ahead of time at any other kind of job. Like that kind of like changes your expectations a lot from your employer and from, I guess in this case, the fans, like, or even the players. Like if you knew your boss was leaving in 9 months, does your work ethic and your perception of the pressure of selection change in any way? I mean, obviously they want to play every game, but if you know that boss isn't going to be your boss forever, maybe things change a little bit.
Well, I think you could spin it both ways, right? The psychology of this could work in the way of like, oh, my boss is leaving. Oh, what's going on here? This is strange and not good. And now we don't know if we're all pulling together in the same direction. Or my boss is leaving. I really like my boss. Let's send him out on a high. Let's really push to bring LAFC another championship and give Steve Cherundolo that boost off into the sunset, or that send off into the sunset, whatever that is. And even if it's a German sunset. And again, I think a lot of people sort of see this as Steve Cherundolo laying the groundwork for a departure to go back to Germany. We have some people in the chat mentioning Hanover, which is where he spent his entire playing career. The mayor of Hanover, Steve Cherundolo. It would only make sense that if something's going on in Germany, that there might be clubs, particularly in the second Bundesliga, who would say, that could be interesting. Look at what he did in MLS. And the jump, obviously, from MLS the second Bundesliga is not as big as going from MLS to the Bundesliga or to some other top league in Europe. And I'm sure Steve Cherundolo has every desire to be a first team top level manager in Germany, probably, but maybe perhaps somewhere else in Europe. I mean, again, some of this, though, could be beyond just the football element and could be about family. And we spent our time in California. Family's German, wife's German, kids are German. Steve basically German at this point. Let's go back to Germany.
So we talked about his announcement of stepping away on Friday, but in the game on Saturday, he got himself a red card. There was a couple of contentious refereeing decisions, and his coaching opposite for Portland, Phil Neville, had some few things to say about the level of refereeing in Major League Soccer too.
Yeah, let's hear what Phil Neville had to say after the game.
Head coach Phil Neville. Phil, do you want to start off with thoughts or go straight to
Yeah. It was a high level, brilliant game of football. So I think both sets of players should be incredibly proud of that performance. That is, from a pure player's point of view, that was an incredible advert for MLS football. From a player's point of view, not officially. That from a player's point of view, I don't want to add the officials into that, because I've got to say, I think the sending off of Steve Cherundolo was an absolute disgrace. I really do. I got a yellow card at the end for taking my players away from the referee. I thought that I was showing respect. I thought I was doing my job. I thought I was protecting and showing respect to a set of referees that didn't do us any favours, that have never done us any favours. And I get a yellow card, and maybe I'm suspended for the next game for actually trying to help them. But that's it. Done. That's it. Me done with them.
All right. It's a fast. I mean, look, I don't know exactly what happened with Steve Cherundolo. That was a second yellow that Steve Cherundolo got in order to earn the red and be sent off. We don't know. We weren't privy to whatever he said to the referee, whatever the referee believes happened there in terms of dissent or disrespect or whatever. But Phil would know. And look, there's that fraternity of coaches, right? So, and Phil seems to be upset with the referees, not with Steve Cherundolo or LAFC. So if he's saying this, maybe there's something to it. In terms of the actual call, right? The penalty kick that allowed LAFC to level the game after Portland looked like they might really be making a statement in this one. Rob, they were they up 2-0 at one point in this game?
I believe so.
There was a moment where it looked like Portland was saying, okay, we're better than LAFC. We're going to go beat LAFC on our home patch. I think we got the Giroud free kick goal, which,
hey, cheers to him for finally getting off the mark.
Yeah. Congratulations. We didn't know Olivier Giroud was going to be taking free kicks for LAFC, but there he is. He scores. It makes it interesting. It was 2-0 at that point. Then he scores. Then David Martinez scored. Dini Bouanga making things happen and really being, except for the free kick goal from Giroud, the only guy that really could do anything for LAFC at this point. They are pretty one-dimensional, as Father Time says. Bouanga or bus. It does seem to be mostly that at this point. I don't know, Rob, what you make of the shot against the referees. I think Phil has a history of that. Again, the penalty that was given, you said it was soft when we watched it back before the show.
Yeah, it's one of those, if you were a fan of one side or the other, if that call goes against you, you're like, that's a terrible call. And then if it goes for you, you're like, well, I'll take that. It's one of those. There was, a player goes around a defender, and there might have been a knuckle hair touched him across the foot, and he went down. So, yeah, and it wasn't called it wasn't called in the moment. VAR,
and that's the thing. That's the thing, right? So, and those of us who are in the anti-VAR brigade, and I am captain of the anti-VAR brigade. All right, I got a little hat. I got a little, I don't know, one of those things that the guys who lead the band. What are those people called? What are they called? The guys.
The band leader.
In high school, they were like twirl the batons and stuff. What are they? I don't know.
Color guard.
Color guard. Okay, yeah, whatever. Color guard, something like that. Drum major. Thank you. Actually, Jenny that's even better. Drum major. I'm a drum major for the anti-VAR brigade. Okay, and that's the issue. If it's not given in the moment, And look,
Let it
again,
be.
Phil Neville has an issue with the referee, period. And maybe you don't trust the referee to make that call in the moment. Maybe MLS referees are terrible and we should never trust them at all. And we got to come around and re-referee everything. But that particular call in the moment, if that's not given, leave it. Leave it. There's no reason a minute and a half later or whatever it was after the ball moves out of the Portland box for VAR to tell the referee, hey, now go over there and look at it. And then give a penalty on what comes down to a judgment call that is not, is that clear and obvious to you? Does that look clear and obvious to you that should have been a penalty?
That's the re-refereeing right there, in my opinion. That's re-refereeing. Like the referee saw it was in the box, and then the eye in the sky came back and told the referee how to do his job. I wouldn't say that was some glaring error that, that there would have been a stain on the game if it wasn't called by any means.
Right, exactly. And to me, if you're going to do this thing where you're going to break up the rhythm of the game, if you're going to do this thing where you re-referee, which is in the head of every referee in any place that uses VAR, if you're going to do it, make sure you're making it worth it. That we're really correcting clear and obvious errors. That we're not going back and going, oh, was it Diego Chara? Did Diego Chara, did he nick Dini Bouanga's toe? And Dinuwanga is absolutely one who will go over at the slightest hint of any contact. And he sat on the ground with his arms in the air after that for about, a minute? He's just sitting there, arms in the air going, that's a penalty. And again, but why? Oh, I'm frustrated. Again, I'm frustrated. I understand. For me, it's not about like justice. Because I don't think that there can be in that situation and in so many situations in our game, I don't think the word justice applies. What I don't like is that we are undermining the referee's authority, and then we're going back and we're slowing down the game, we're breaking it up, and we're ultimately the referee overrules himself because he's told by VAR to go look at it. Why? It's not a call that needs to be re-refereed. Because if you call that a penalty, I'd be like, okay, yeah, maybe that's a penalty in the moment. You saw it as a penalty, full speed, maybe it's a penalty. You don't call it a penalty because the contact is so slight and Bouanga goes down so easily. Get up. It's not a penalty. Play on. And that's also a justifiable call, and we don't need to do this.
After that 3-3 draw, Portland ends the weekend in 4th and LAFC down in 7th. Also, just one quick note about the refereeing. I did see in some open cups referees not calling things, like waiting for there to be like an opportunity for a whistle for VAR that wasn't existing. So shaping referees' behavior in general is VAR. Moving on to long ball number 3. Devastating news for the women's national team came in on Saturday. Superstar Trinity Rodman ruled out indefinitely with that ongoing back injury. The star, pulled out from Saturday's game, saying that she, needs to manage her back, and she wouldn't be stepping away from team activities and will be returning only when she's healthy. This stems from a back injury back in September when she had to leave an NWSL game in a wheelchair. She's played since then, and they said, this is a management thing. Never, then this injury is something that will never heal again. So Trinity Rodman, one of the big stars, and big part of the future for the women's national team and the NWSL.
Yeah, I mean,
out indefinitely.
This is a big deal for Washington Spirit. This is a big deal for them. Finalist last year in the NWSL. I watched that game, and you wanted Trinity Rodman to play at her level because she is a superstar when she's at her best, and you want the stars to shine because it's good for NWSL, and to have her at her best makes the league better, makes the league more intriguing, obviously makes the Washington Spirit better, who are good enough to be in the hunt for an NWSL championship again this season. The national team, easier to replace her in the national team than it would be for the Washington Spirit, but still tough and still stinks and all those things. But this is not, hey, she just needs to like heal up a bit and then her back will be okay and she'll be able to play again. This is, she doesn't want to be debilitated later on in life when she's no longer playing soccer, or she doesn't want to have all of her life affected by this kind of injury. Back injuries are a bitch. Like they are just the worst. If you've ever thrown your back out at all, and it happened to me, and I didn't need surgery, right? I wasn't at that level, but just having my back bad for whatever it was, 3-4 days a week, and trying to figure out how to sleep. Like you can't sleep because everything hurts and there's no position that makes you comfortable. And just to be able to walk down the street, I really hope that for Trinity Rodman's sake as a person, she figures out the back thing. And if she gets to play soccer again, obviously I want that. I'm sure she does as well. But, this is more than just a soccer thing.
22 years old is a heck of a time to be dealing with something that is going to be with you your whole life. Speaking of just soccer players here in the area, like they've said to me, it's almost cliche. Once you have your first back surgery, welcome to the future. Like there's never just one back surgery for the most part. And especially if you're using your body as your tool for your trade. I mean, that's pretty brutal. I mean, it's literally the spine of your body. I mean, we talk about that in soccer. You got to be strong up the spine. And if you lay down, your back is effective. If you stand up, your back's effective. There's no movement that your body does that does not use the back. And that's unfortunate. And then just for Washington especially, but just for, women's soccer fans in general, like one of the most exciting players in the talent pool out indefinitely. So hopefully that is not too long. According to W Top News, not familiar with that outlet, but they said that she's going to be receiving treatment in London.
That's WTOP. It's a news station here in DC. So it's a radio station, WTOP. Yeah. So London. I guess that's where the bacchiotomists are. Is that what they're called? Bacchiotomists.
She definitely needs a bacchiotomy, and we hope her well. Jokes aside, I mean, we want to see her in action,
right.
Just from a fan sport, sporting notion, from a sporting place. Hope she's okay, and then for national team fans and Washington fans, hopefully this is just management and that she can return to her fullest potential before too long. Before we move on, if you haven't subscribed yet, come on. Hit the button. We crashed through the 2,000 subscriber mark, heading towards 2,500. If you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button and then tell your friends and family to do the same. You can follow along on social media at MKickaround, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And you can also find us as a podcast on your favorite audio platform. Look for Morning Kick Around. Later in the program, we are going to dig into injured players sticking up for their coach under fire. But next up, we're going to talk about American soccer being weird, hosting games in different stadiums. That on American Soccer's Weird on Morning Kick Around. American soccer is weird here on Morning Kick Around. I'm Robert. He's Jason. Over the weekend, Columbus Crew, which has a very new stadium, beautiful stadium, hosted Inter Miami, which features a certain global superstar called Leo Messi. And the game was not held in Columbus, Ohio, but in Cleveland, Ohio, in the Cleveland Browns NFL Stadium. And so while at the beginning of the show, we talked about the game, great game, very entertaining. That's where I was from. I was in the non-Deca. So the supporters section in Columbus is called the Nordeca. And there was a little bit of a lapse from what I perceived. Shout out to Martin and Megan, actually, before we get into this. Met up with them, had dinner with them after the game, sat with them at the game. Some super fans who flew in from out of town for this match. And Martin, listener of the show, thanks for tuning in, Martin, if you're tuning in. Great conversation after the game, but there was plenty of mixed emotions at this match. It was 60,000, so electric atmosphere. But the super fans that I was in the mixed with here, there was a lot of grumblings about it not being in Columbus, a lot of grumblings about the communication from club leadership about apparently it seemed like they were game in general to move all their normal tifos and band and all the game setup stuff that the super supporters usually do. Not a lot of communication. There wasn't any buses set up or anything like that. Kind of left to their own devices to get out to Cleveland from what I heard about. So it was a big spectacle. but also a little bit of a controversy. So we set up this question: should league games be played at a third location for special one-time events? 60,000 people, jet flyover, the whole American rigmarole was in effect. Yeah. And first game I've ever seen the attendance announcement get booed. So there was an interesting mix of emotions here, but it comes down to, should the Columbus Crew be spreading their footprint, get as many fans as possible, or should they respect the super supporters and have the biggest player in the world come to their stadium for their home game?
So this is interesting to me. I don't know. It's. I think the fans, from what I can tell, I think Crew fans saw this more as the Haslams did it, right? Not the Crew did it. The Haslams, and even though the Haslams own the Crew, this is separate from the identity of what the Columbus Crew are. And obviously the Haslams saved the Crew in the sense they helped keep that team in Columbus when we had the whole Save the Crew saga and when there was a threat of the club being moved to Austin. And I imagine there's still a lot of goodwill for that. But they also own the Browns. I think it's a kind of it's a marriage of convenience, not so much a marriage of love. I think it's D. Haslam who's mostly involved in the Crew side of things, while Jimmy is more the Browns person. But there's obviously the crossover, right? They're going to say, and this is again about, let's maximize the potential attendance for a game involving the best player in the world, a guy we know is going to draw. So on the business side of this, there's really no. Okay. On the business side of it, you can't really say, well, what are you doing here? This makes sense. 60,000 tickets sold versus 20,000 in Columbus, but it does strike at the purity of the game, right? And the thing that is supposed to happen, which I certainly railed about during the Save the Crew era, the whole saga, the whole drama, which is that sports teams, I'm going to say sports teams, soccer clubs maybe especially, but sports teams aren't just businesses, right? It's not. If I go down to my local bakery and buy a loaf of bread, I'm a customer, right? If that bakery says, you know what, this isn't the best location for us, we're going to move across town, and I'm upset, I can be upset, but I can find another bakery. This is not one of those things where like, oh, wow, my bakery's gone, my life is over. We treat our sports teams like extensions of ourselves, like extensions of our family. There's a civic connection that goes beyond business. So when something like this happens, when the ownership says, you know what's good for us, what's good for growing our brand, which those three words, man, they can make some people sick. It's to go play in Cleveland in front of 60,000 with a jet flyover, to do it all big American style. And man, I don't know, like, are we at a point? This is the question for me. Is American soccer at a point where we can afford to pass up on those opportunities to quote unquote grow the game the way the Haslams did, even if it was just clearly avarice and better for their bottom line?
The funny comment coming in, I think from Urias or Nate, talking about, well, let's play just every Inter Miami game at SoFi. Why don't we? Which is funny to think about, considering all the games that have been happening in SoFi lately. But for a little bit of Crew context through conversation, I guess before Cincinnati came into the mix a few years ago, Columbus was marketed as Ohio's team. So there are chapters of the fan group in Cleveland and various different cities.
Well, that makes sense. And that makes sense. So again, and look, this is an in-state situation that kind of parallels to what we're seeing with European leagues and clubs imagining playing games outside of their home countries, right? We just had U.S. Soccer reach an agreement, a settlement with Relevant Sports over the idea of playing league matches for La Liga, for Serie A, for whoever steps up and partners with Relevant or whoever else to organize these things in the United States, right? Because previously it was, wait, you can't do that. Not only should you not do it, just from a right and wrong perspective for the fans of the club in Spain, in Italy, whatever, but from a U.S. soccer perspective, it's like, well, you're undermining our own domestic game if you bring that over here. Right. So that's not applicable in this case because you're still within the country, still within the state. But there is a sense of like, are the Columbus Crew a team that should be traveling a little bit into Miami? Whoever it is, should they be traveling? If you're not playing in Ohio Stadium because it's not big enough for soccer, the field, I mean, then you have to go to Cleveland. That is not Columbus, and that feels wrong. And if we're talking about what sports is supposed to be, if you're a Cleveland fan to Columbus, Rob, you might make the trip down to Columbus to go see some games every now and then, right? And you recognize that that's the bargain you're making by adopting the Crew. Is it supposed to work the other way around? The Columbus people who have this is my team and I go to every game. Oh wait, you're taking a game away from me? Now I got to drive a couple of hours north to go see my team play for a home game, which honestly, yes, we could have a lot of Columbus fans and it could be a home field advantage on some level, but it's not our home field. And if we miss the playoffs, or we miss out on a supporter shield by a couple points because we played a game in Cleveland, does that feel right?
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely grumblings at full time speaking to that. But at the same time, I came back with there was plenty of opportunities for Columbus to score in that game, and they just didn't. I don't think they lost that game because they were in a separate location. They had the
of course not.
Daniel Gazdag doesn't miss the open header because they were 3 hours away.
No, true. And but I'm saying that there's a reasonable reason to ask that question if you are doing so. Again, and to extrapolate this out to this idea of playing La Liga matches in the United States, if Real Betis plays here, if Valladolid plays here against Barcelona, whoever, and again, it's their home game, right? It would be normally on the schedule as their home game on the fixture list for Valladolid or for whoever. And there's like, oh, we're going to move that game to Miami, and you're going to play Barcelona in Miami, and they lose that game, right? They might have lost it anyway, but if they lose that game, then they'll always look back. If they get relegated, they miss out on Europe, they'll always look back and go, well, we lost home field advantage. And yes, it's a degree of difference going a couple hours north to Cleveland and staying within the state than it is taking your game across an ocean. But I do think that Crew fans could ask that question. Look, we are good at home. That's not our home. It's just flat out not, Rob.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. From a shrewd business sense, though, with the news of promotion and relegation coming to the shores of the United States, at some point, you think the likelihood of a Cleveland team starting to capture the American soccer audience, might make sense for Cleveland to spread their wings and maybe win the hearts and minds of some more Clevelanders. With the opportunity of Cleveland team maybe encroaching on the inroads that Columbus has already made.
But that's okay. And again, that is also distasteful as an American soccer fan. I mean, I find it difficult to get myself to a place of like, oh, the Haslam should just let it be. And if they have a base in Cleveland, which they do because of the Browns, don't use that. Don't take advantage of that when Messi comes to Ohio. Leave that, because it would be better for American soccer on the whole if the new Cleveland team in the USL, whatever league they're going to be jumping into, gets a chance to grow their own fan base. Now, at that level, you don't need 1 million Clevelanders to support that team for that team to be successful, because they're not playing the top level. They don't need to be drawing 20 and 30,000 every week to be successful. So maybe it's not that. But if there is any sense at all that we're in competition with one another on that level, it feels wrong. Again, we live in a country where that's the way of things, right? We live in a country where U.S. soccer can't tell MLS, hey, don't go to Cleveland for a game because there's going to be a Cleveland team in the USL or any of these teams. Like, don't go into that territory because there's another team in another league that already has that territory. That's not how it works. We don't protect those territories that way. Within those leagues, they do, right? USL says you can't have multiple teams in one city. You have franchise rights in that city. MLS has largely done this, although they've, dropped a New York team on top of a New York area team and stuff like that. But I don't like that, right? Because I don't want there to be I don't want something to prevent a Cleveland team from being successful. And I don't think that the game in Cleveland for the Crew will do that, Rob. But it's just not, it doesn't feel right for growing the sport.
Yeah, I know the hardcore fans definitely were put out, definitely by it. I saw in the chat earlier talking about there was some pink color in the Nordeca section, which the supporters were calling the non-Deca.
That's a no-no. That's a no-no.
And so I guess part of the bartering that happened was like, that wasn't going to be allowed. We'll facilitate there not being any pink in there, and there definitely was. But there was 60,000 folks there. at the very least 40,000 of them were Crew fans. But
Okay,
there
you
was
believe-
definitely noise came from the Nordeca section when Miami got their goal, which is reason
Okay.
to be upset.
Because Nate said, I bet 90% of the fans were for Miami. You're saying that is not the case.
No,
You're
there was
saying
definitely a roar at the stadium when they scored, but it was by no means majority Miami.
Shout out to Harry, by the way, who just became a member. You can follow Harry, become a member on the channel. You also sent me a video. I want to play. I don't know if this is just a vibe, an ambiance thing, but I do want to play this because Rob did record a video in Cleveland. Let me do that again. One more time.
Yeah, this is right before kickoff.
I would say that doesn't look as engaged as I wanted it to be. Does that make sense? Like and maybe because the game wasn't happening yet. I mean, you tell me, because a smaller venue, you obviously get the noise is different. And if you have a full house in a venue like that, I imagine it's different. But yeah, somebody said earlier, I don't know who it was, that it was hollow. Did it feel hollow to you? Is that a good word for that?
A little bit. There was definitely some cynicism in the air. Like I said, there was literal booing of an attendance announcement, which I've never thought I'd ever see, which was interesting. And there was some sneering definitely at the full-time whistles, like, whoa, we would have won at home and stuff like that. And I feel like there was just a little bit of the raw passion that I've experienced when going to the Columbus Stadium, lower.com. It wasn't as palpable passion, but it did seem like a spectacle still. It wasn't like I wasn't disappointed in it, but it was a unique feeling.
Is the juice worth the squeeze is what I come back to. And I don't know we have an answer to that. I'm going to throw in Mike Thomas, also a member. Anytime you are catering to fans of a player on the other team, it's a violation. Now, here's the thing, though. I take Mike's point, right? The idea is you wouldn't be playing this game if Lionel Messi wasn't coming with Inter Miami. You wouldn't be doing this in Cleveland because you probably wouldn't be able to generate that many fans in the building. But I think, very much like, and I remember this distinctly because it was right before the rebranding, and they obviously had some success. Kansas City played Manchester United, not a league game, but played Manchester United in Arrowhead Stadium in an era when they were no longer playing in Arrowhead, right? Because Manchester United came to town. They obviously filled that place up because Manchester United came to town. They beat Manchester United that day in a preseason friendly. Still was a big deal. Helped launch that team in Kansas City to greater heights within the league. They built a stadium. They changed their name. They won a championship. 15 years later, they fired Peter Vermees. My point is, if you think that they were catering to Miami fans, to Messi fans, that's a violation. But if putting the Crew in front of fans who were only there for Messi helps turn those people into Crew fans, or helps make the sport bigger in Cleveland or in Ohio, generally speaking, is that okay?
That's a big question. That's a very, very current American question there. I'll admit, when I was walking up and to the NFL stadium on the shores of Lake Erie in Cleveland, and there's this, hordes of people going there. There's helicopters flying over. At the anthem, there was jets flying over, and it was wild. This is all for one guy, like one person. Imagine if he pulled a hammy in warmups. And so we've done all this for what? You know what I mean? It's like, obviously you get people in the door there, but we definitely were, before we drove, it was a last second trip. We definitely were refreshing to see if Messi was in the lineup or not.
Is that the building that has been called the Factory of Sadness? Is that the same building? Is that the Factory of Sadness?
I could imagine it's the team's home of the Cleveland Browns. So even if it's not the official one, I'm sure there's plenty of sadness has happened in that building.
Whether that's the actual building that was deemed the Factory of Sadness, that's a name that would transfer to the new, whatever the new building of the Cleveland Browns is, because the Browns generate sadness. That's just want to make. There you go.
Producer Jenny can confirm in the chat that is the official sadness. I never thought I'd sit in the dog pound. I'll tell you, that was my first trip to Cleveland. Wow. Never thought I'd sit in the dog pound. It was an interesting experience. So, a very interesting one-off. 60,000 in attendance to see Columbus Crew be defeated by Inter Miami, but not Messi. It was interesting, and it wasn't a performance worthy to be proud of for Crew fans, I would say. I mean, obviously not the result They did everything they could, and it didn't have the players didn't seem like they treated like an exhibition or anything. Crew players definitely gutted. At the end of the game when they, half the team is laying on the floor, they put it, they're all into it. So definitely not a exhibition performance from the competitors on the field. If you haven't subscribed just yet, please do so now. Morning Kick Around is tallying up those subscribers. We crashed through 2,000 on the way to 2,500, on our way to 50,000 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button now and be like Harry. Harry, our latest and newest and our favorite new member of Morning Kick Around on YouTube. Thank you, Harry, for subscribing and becoming a member. And members get early access to videos, priority on comments, and much more. Become a member at Morning Kick Around on the YouTube. You can follow us on social media at mkickaround, X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com, or find us as a podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Got one more segment to go. Let's fire it up. We are going to do Hot Topic here on Morning Kick Around. Hot topic of the day here on Morning Kick Around. After going 9 matches without a win, what does it mean the injured LA Galaxy superstar Riqui Puig had to come to the defense, or chose to come to the defense of his coach Greg Vanney after another loss? Reigning champions LA Galaxy winless after 9.
Yeah, this seems like an escalation, right? Like, okay, Ricky's got some time on his hands. I know he's rehabbing. I know he's trying to get like the surgery is done. The healing is mostly done. He's just now trying to rehab his way back. He's got another 4 months before we expect to see him on the field. So he's got some time on his hands. And he decided that in response to this is not a national news outlet, right? This is not ESPN, it's not the Athletic. This is not some notable personality within American soccer asking the question about whether or not Greg Vanney should be gone. This is a fan account. LA Galaxy community and memes is how they are described on X. All right. Only one person I know follows this account. That's Eli Lesser. Shout out to Eli Lesser, great YouTube content creator and a Galaxy fan, Eli, I believe. So why did Ricky find it necessary to respond to this? Does he think there might be real heat and that his guy Greg can go? First of all, let's admire Ricky for supporting his guy, right? The guy who won a championship with last year.
He's obviously still engaged with the team.
Yeah, obviously, yes, right. And this is why I love Riqui Puig. Not only is he a fun player to watch, not only is he's a guy that I think makes MLS more interesting on the field. I mean, at the end of last season, what was so crazy is he had been this way all year long, but you saw in the playoffs on the biggest stage, he was the best kid on the field who you give the ball to so he can dribble 10 guys and find a way to score or set somebody up to score, right? It felt a little bit like youth soccer, the way Ricky would pick the ball up about 25, 30 yards from his own goal and just go, and there's guys available. It's not like there aren't guys available. There's guys here. And he's like, no, I'm going to dribble 3 guys.
I can just imagine the youth soccer parent like, hey, get that kid. What's that little kid doing there?
Yeah, I mean, everybody knew Ricky was the best player on the field. He had the untimely injury, obviously played through the injury to help beat Seattle. Incredible stuff there. And then, and obviously, look, whatever his dreams were when he arrived in Los Angeles, he didn't come here thinking, I'm just going to bide my time and go back. He's all in on being a member of the LA Galaxy. He's all in on helping that team win. And he clearly sees Greg Vanney as a major reason for that success. I don't think you can decouple Vanney from the team and say, well, they did it in spite of him. That nobody had that since last year. Vanney was a major part of it. So did Greg Vanney suddenly become a bad coach, Rob? Did that happen? Did I miss something? Is he a bad coach?
I mean, anyone can develop bad habits over a short period of time, but from the information we have available to us, he has not been able to get the performance out of the team with the new pieces he has available. Whether his cupboard is a little bit short and he doesn't have a full set to set the plate and make the meal, but you feel like at some point you accidentally or you just grind it out enough to skimp away. 9 opportunities is plenty to find a win. Obviously, you get outplayed if you don't have the talent or bad games here and there, but 9 games is a lot to go without a single victory.
Yeah, so winless in Major League Soccer after winning a championship is such a strange juxtaposition of things, right? Winless through 9 games the year after you win a title. They're -10. They've only scored 6 goals in 9 games. They're -10 goal difference, which is worse in the league.
Yeah.
It does feel like, in a normal situation, you would say the coach has got to be responsible. And since we can't fire all the players, we got to fire the coach. I mean, this is the way of the world anywhere else. And of course, if I'm going to say these words, if there was promotion relegation in Major League Soccer, then I really think
there'd
they
be
would
some
have
sweating going on
to consider something, right? So much of the conversation around the Galaxy, though, is about what our chat is talking about, that the turnover, that the changes. Okay, so this is interesting. LA Galaxy overestimated the contribution of some players and way underestimated the value of others. How could they end up with 0 money available going into the summer transfer window? Right, and this is obviously about the math and GAM available and the contracts. I mean, a Joveljic moving into a range where they could no longer pay him as a U22 initiative player was a major factor in his departure. I mean, I do think a lot of people will maybe look at Mark Delgado as the most emblematic player in what the Galaxy got wrong, even amidst the difficulties they have in terms of the budget, Rob, because Marco Delgado, whatever he's being called these days, was the unsung hero last year. He did get some plaudits at the end because he was so important in those playoff matches. But he's the guy that people would say, hey, he really held this together. And he goes across town. And obviously, LAFC is not having a great start, but he's been good for them too. And you're looking at replacing him with players that just haven't met the level. And is that Greg Vanney's fault? Is it Will Kuntz's fault, who got so much praise last year for building a championship team? Like, these guys didn't suddenly stop being good at their jobs. So you just keep giving them a pass because the league's system works against them.
It's one of those jobs where it's never done. Nothing's ever complete. It's always the next step along the way. Great, you won. Next season, probably about 10 minutes later after they won last year, they probably, minds go to next year already. And it's a very competitive job. It's the what have you done for me lately, which is why this is even a question, is because the nature of how cutthroat, being a coach of a professional team of any sport is. And yeah, he still got that shine on him. If he didn't win the league last year, his seat would be a lot hotter. And I guess there's a lot of understanding and justification going on regarding, Vanney with all the pieces and the success and whatnot. Yeah. But okay, so what saves him? Does he make some adjustments with the pieces he has? Did they make a big move in the offseason?
The hard truth right now is that there's really no real argument for making any changes, right? So the Galaxy went through the turnover in the front office, firing their president after all of those. Remember, they had the mismanagement of the roster budget.
That was only 2 years ago?
2 years ago. They had the mismanagement of the roster budget. People were calling for heads to roll. They eventually did. They move on. Will Kuntz moves across town from LAFC after being an assistant GM there, comes to the Galaxy, helps build a roster. Greg Vanney, a guy we know can win in this league because he did it in Toronto, particularly if you give him the weapons and the talent. He comes in and turns this team into a champion. They nearly finished first in the Western Conference. He missed out on it on the final day of the regular season. Right, so they had a very good year. Riqui Puig was a major part of that, but Paintsill and Peck, these are players that, again, Will Kuntz brought into the team to help put them over the top. And then I guess, again, what's so different in MLS, Rob, is that whereas in a European league, top level European league, and maybe to a certain extent Mexico, although the short seasons, I think that the tournaments really change this and make it more competitive campaign to campaign. In Europe, you would go, we could never stomach being champions and then dropping all the way down to the bottom of the table. Like even if you weren't being threatened by relegation, dropping to the middle of the table after a championship season would be a disaster. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe a coach would be fired. I don't know. Like it's really difficult to imagine anybody in Europe doing that, because once established, you kind of float in that area. Now you may drop Manchester United, you may struggle for a while, but generally these teams are kind of like, Liverpool. We can't imagine Liverpool finishing lower than maybe sixth. Even in a disastrous year, Liverpool doesn't finish lower than sixth anytime in the near future. Really, anytime in the near future. Where the Galaxy go from the best team in the league or the champion of the league to the bottom of the league in one season. That whiplash, man. It's stunning. It's crazy. And I don't know that we have a frame of reference for it. But like I said, I think the argument is stay the course. Kuntz knows what he's doing. He built you a champion. Greg Vanney knows what he's doing. He coached a champion. You're missing so many pieces. You're missing Riqui Puig. You've got some turnover in the roster that's really tough to swallow. This comes back to Major League Soccer. And whether they change any rules or make it easier for a team to go from what the Galaxy were last year to a competitive team in the next season, I don't know. But I don't think there's any argument for making change right now. I think Ricky's right. Greg Vanney should not be on the hot seat.
Got a shout out, Soccer Night in Detroit, brand new member. Thank you so much for joining the MK Ultras, joining the memberships, getting priority commenting, getting early access to videos, and many more perks to come for becoming a member. Looking at the chat, Ian Webb, you asked a good question about USL and promotion and relegation and kind of the thought behind that. I would say look into the Morning Kick Around catalog of videos. We've covered that in a number of different angles. Plenty to dig in on the USL promotion and relegation on the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. Be sure to check out that. And we really appreciate your questions and viewership. If you want to follow along on social media, please do so at MKickaround. Oh, we got another chat here. Detroit Soccer Night. Soccer Night in Detroit. Interesting to see that both DCFC's Darren Smith and Loudon's Abakura have more league goals than Messi so far this year. Who would have thought that?
Who would have thought that? But wait, we have not yet covered. I know. So this is a little bonus time here. I know we're shouting out the members. Thank you very much. We have not yet covered what's happened at Loudoun United off of Pablo Maurer's story. I think we will have to get to that at some point in the near future. Maybe we can even get Pablo on this show. I also want to mention that RSL just got sold for $600 million. That includes Real Monarchs as well, and it also includes the Utah Royals, the NWSL team. So it's a triumvirate of teams and facilities and all of that. But maybe we need to talk about how MLS teams are valued and what they're going for these days. And so I want to cover that. I'm speaking it into existence, Rob.
Always a hinky sort of a topic. How do they value these Major League Soccer teams? Just how do they get these numbers? Definitely worth digging into. So thank you to everyone who subscribed. Thank you to our new members. And thank you for tuning in. And like I said, plenty of videos to dig into on the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. And we will be back on Wednesday. Any final notes as we go out the door here, Mr. Davis?
No, I think that's good. I mean, what a show that was. And thank you to everybody who made it better by being in the chat. Definitely, as Rob said, sign up, help us out, move the show forward, be part of the community. There's a Discord for our members as well. So we'll have a vibrant chat there as well on when we're not doing the show.
All right. We will be back on Wednesday morning. And until then, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.